Welcome. This is James Corbett of the Corbett Report with your EyeOpener report for BoilingFrogsPost.com. With TSA abuses back in the headlines, continued concern over the NDAA and other legislation codifying martial law, President Obama's unchallenged use of his self-proclaimed authority to assassinate American citizens without trial, and an increasingly bewildering array of tracking, tracing, and pain compliance technology being used against law-abiding citizens, more and more people are becoming aware of the police state that currently exists in the US, and indeed throughout much of the so-called free world. With this understanding comes a certain amount of apprehension. After all, the enemies of liberty are organized and persistent, and they inhabit positions of authority. The defenders of liberty, meanwhile, seem few and far between, and more time seems spent convincing others that the police state even exists than in working to dismantle those systems of control. What these concerns obscure, however, is the simple fact that the police state constitutes a mental prison as much as a physical one, and that part of its power is in convincing the public that it is all-seeing, all-knowing, and all-powerful. Once that illusion is shattered, the police state can be seen for what it is: a system of coercion that can only function if a majority of the people go along with it. In recent years, an increasing number of people have been revolting against police state authority, some with lighthearted humor, others with nothing more than a camera and the courage to use it, but all with the understanding that rights can only be safeguarded by a vigilant population that refuses to submit to arbitrary and intrusive authority.
Here comes Peter Cottontail, hopping down the bunny trail.
Before he headed out to hide eggs across the valley, the Easter Bunny spent his Saturday night hiding a photo radar camera in Tempe.
It's all a scam.
Shelton videotaped the prank and then uploaded it to YouTube. The 90-second clip shows someone dressed in the costume walk up to a red light camera at the intersection of Rural and University in Tempe. The bunny, who Shelton won't identify, takes a giant egg and places it over the camera, rendering it useless.
The driver getting yelled at in a commuter parking lot outside St. Louis is Brett Darrow, who has installed a camera in his car.
And the camera runs all the time?
Yeah.
Come on, boy! Come on, boy! Give me some more love!
But the lip came from Sergeant James Kenline. His rant was sent by Darrow to friends and ended up all over the internet. Cop Gone Wild reads one title. The officer has been put on unpaid administrative leave.
If you can secure your own identity with your own fingerprint or your eye scan, it means people can't take your personal details and abuse them and apply for credit without permission to do so. So it actually will help the citizen secure their own personal identity.
But just as the hard sell was in full swing, with shoppers at the galleries road testing the new biometrics, a scene straight out of Orwell's 1984 hit us. 20 or so demonstrators rolled out banners and placards. As ringleader David Gould reckoned the true cost of all the new technology would be billions, he did a Jeremy Paxman on the minister, trying to confirm his calculations.
What are you afraid of, Minister?
What we're doing today is crushing the final remnants of the National Identity Card scheme, the disks and hard drives that held the information on the National Identity Register have been wiped and now crushed and reduced to bits of metal, so everyone can be absolutely sure that the identity card scheme is now finally dead and buried.
They now make you put all your belongings in this little see-through plastic bag. It's a bit over the top, I would have thought.
No, I disagree. Personally, I don't think we can be cautious enough on this one.
I'm flight to Gold Coast.
So I'll keep it open for a little bit longer.
I don't have any weapons. It's water to combat your weapons. How many weapons do you have? How many weapons do you have on you? Thank you for your cooperation. Thousands of dollars worth of weapons, and it belongs to the people, that money. And this is to protect us against you guys and your spray. So fuck off.
Ironically, it is the very technological development that has allowed the progenitors of the police state to create their databases, cameras, and Big Brother surveillance state systems that is increasingly enabling the average citizen to fight back against that system, a point so obvious that it has even been addressed by the bought and paid for establishment mouthpiece, News.
With so many of us carrying cell phone and digital cameras, we'll be seeing a lot more eyewitness video. So what should you keep in mind if you see news unfolding in front of you? Melanie Nagy has some of the answers.
All it took was the flick of a switch on this digital camera. The result was this. Some call it citizen journalism. Everyday folks armed with a camera or recording device capturing the events that unfold around them.
The tools to report on the world around you are in the hands of ordinary citizens.
This UBC journalism professor says video captured by the public is increasingly becoming more available and more important.
It used to be said that journalists wrote the first draft of history, but now increasingly what we're seeing is that ordinary people, citizens, are capturing that first draft, and they're capturing it in images and video, and then that video is extraordinarily powerful.
With the realization that more people are wielding and using their cameras as a tool to keep the so-called authorities honest, has come an inevitable backlash by the system. In 2009, the UK went so far as to pass a law deeming anyone so much as suspected of taking a picture of a police officer as a criminal. When confronted by a massive backlash against the law, including a protest in Trafalgar Square in January 2010, the London Metropolitan Police attempted to assure the public that it was their policy to allow filming or photographing of public spaces and police personnel. As late as last month, however, a photographer in Mansfield was threatened with arrest by 2 police community support officers for having taken photographs in a public space. In the US, police around the country have tried again and again to arrest citizens for photographing or filming their actions, and these cases have been thrown out again and again by judges. Although laws vary from state to state, the vast majority of states have unambiguous laws that allow for the filming of public officials in public spaces. One person campaigning for greater awareness of these laws is Carlos Miller, proprietor of the website Photography is Not a Crime. He has twice been arrested for filming the police, and has twice beaten those charges, and has engaged the Miami-Dade Metro Rail security on multiple occasions, despite the Metro Rail's stated policy of allowing photography at its stations. Earlier this month, I had the chance to talk to Carlos Miller about the ways that an informed populace can help in the fight to keep public spaces open to photography and video by simply arming themselves with a camera.
You know, they arrest somebody, when they arrested me, you know, they arrested me for taking pictures. That was obvious. Well, they couldn't really write that in an arrest report. So they said, well, he was standing in the middle of the street. He was blocking traffic. He was creating a big disturbance. And these are 5 cops. You know, and if it wasn't for any photography, any cameras, well, you know, who's the judge going to believe? Who's the jury going to believe? They're not going to believe me over 5 cops. They're going to believe the cops. They come in there with their uniforms, and people, most juries have a tendency to believe the cops. You know, now with video, it actually shows what really happened. So it forces the cops to be honest, and a lot of cops are used to stretching the truth just to make the charges stick, you know, to their agenda, and that really hinders sometimes what they want to do. Because sometimes, you know, you have a lot of cops who arrest people on unlawful charges, and they make it up just because they don't like your attitude. We call it contempt of cop. You know, if you backtalk to a cop, or you question a cop, or if you ask his badge number, for example, if you ask his name, and because you know, cops want to be respected, and so do we. And I always tell people to respect cops, but you know, you don't necessarily have to kiss their butt. You know, you don't have to. Oh, I mean, you have the right to question why they're pulling you over. You have that right as citizens. We're not living in a police state yet, but a lot of times they will arrest you for asking their names and badge number. So that's the reason. I mean, they don't want to be recorded because it just shows the truth, and they have nothing to hide. Because there's a lot of cops who don't have anything to hide. And you'll see a lot of cops who just tell you, know, just stay out of my way. Don't interfere with my investigation. You just stay across the street, record all you want, and that's it. And usually those cops are doing their job, and that video is not really interesting because they're doing their job. And that's the way it should be. And I mean, I would wish that we can just record cops and have a bunch of boring videos that no one cares about because they're not doing anything. But what you have now is you start recording a cop, they get in your face, they start threatening you, and then they make themselves look really stupid. They send me the video, I put it up on my blog, and it just goes viral. And then the cop gets mad. Well, he is the one that made himself look stupid. And we see that every day, almost.
Another key aspect of the police-state control grid are the myriad tracking technologies that are used to keep the population docile and compliant. With just 1% of the world's population and over 20% of its CCTV cameras, it is difficult for the average UK resident to escape the all-seeing eye of Big Brother. But with the help of organizations like No CCTV, the public is increasingly becoming informed about strategies for engaging local councils and having the cameras removed, sometimes with remarkable results. Earlier this month, I talked to Charles Ferrier of No CCTV UK about the work his organization is doing in helping British citizens combat the police state in the UK.
I mean, in Oxford was the first one we set up, and what we did there was they were trying to put a set of sort of permanently fixed cameras along a road in the east of Oxford, which is not the city centre, quite a bohemian student area, quite a nice area. People loved it in that area, but they wanted to sort of turn it into every other part of Oxford where all these cameras are. We fought against it. We didn't get a complete victory in that one, but we got them to back down a lot. We got them from 10 fixed cameras down a road to 3 temporary wireless cameras, much smaller cameras, which are much easier to get removed. There were some problems with the campaign at the end, which is where it took 2 years to get the real result on it, and people started to lose interest and go away. All that would require, I'm sure we can get those 3 cameras out of Oxford if people will just get active again. The biggest success story in the last couple of years was in Birmingham, where a campaign group was set there by Steve Jolly, who we worked alongside, and he fought against the cameras, set up number plate recognition cameras and normal cameras, 216 cameras put around certain areas of Birmingham called Project Champion. That was a huge one, and that was a massive victory because in December of 2010 it was announced that those cameras would all go because of the weight of support of public opinion against them. And in 2011, all of those 216 cameras removed from a city, a cost of over £3.5 million. Sort of scheme that no one would believe it was possible to get those cameras removed, because everyone would say that money's been spent, millions of pounds of public money, but those cameras came down, and that was an enormous victory. And it definitely got the government and the powers that be on the back foot, because that's why a lot of the stuff in the Protection of Freedoms Bill going through now is trying to soft soap the surveillance society. We've had other victories, but some of those are invisible. So what will happen is someone will contact us and they'll say, my local council's planning to put some cameras in, what can we do? We'll help them, point them at some studies, give them some advice. They'll go to a council meeting, and a councillor might well back down straight away. So it never appears on the radar. All it is a seed of an idea. And because in a way, that's the best way to get at these problems, is to get them really early, nip them in the bud. So we've had a few like that. We've had other successes in Birmingham, trying to block a few schemes there. But we've not really got enough active people to stop these, because you really do need that local angle. For a group like No CCTV can be an advisory group, but we can't be all over the country. We can't attend local council meetings. But all it takes is a few people to do that, and then we can get more success.
Emboldened by their growing numbers and empowered by new technologies, more and more cop watch groups, independent news websites, citizen action campaigns, and individuals are resisting the police state through a variety of means. As always, the number of people who are actively involved in protecting our waning civil liberties may not be a majority, but the numbers are growing by the day, and the technology for disseminating information has leveled the playing field between the oppressor and the oppressed like no other time in human history. And as with so many struggles, those struggling against the power of the police state are realizing that their greatest power lies in merely resisting the system and refusing to go along with the arbitrary dictates of the so-called rulers. And with that simple act of mental liberation, the understanding that the system requires our cooperation in order to proceed, the masses are once again discovering that behind the pomp and circumstance, Big Brother is not so frightening after all. This video is brought to you by the subscribers of BoilingFrogsPost.com. For more information on this and other topics, please go to BoilingFrogsPost.com. For more information and commentary from James Corbett, please go to CorbettReport.com.